is creeping in already. Hey, I hope you guys didn't just hear that Blake and I were behind screens, and I'm like, oh, I'm making old man noises. But hey, welcome to Millstone Self-Reliance Group. Today is Blake, Monday. Is it Monday? I don't know.
It is Monday the 21st, 2024.
Well, so you can already see how tonight's live is going to go. I see Gene and Snowshoe checking in and giving their woos. Hey, boys and girls, whoever's watching tonight, thanks for watching the live or watching on demand afterwards. This is going to be a little bit of a shorter episode. There's so much going on. I mean, what's the point of talking for an hour? Right? We're just really, and this is what Blake and I were also laughing about. There's so much going on. I've been saying this for years. It's by design. You can't even keep up with it. So what more is there to talk about? The election takes place in, basically 2 weeks. And, we just got to see what happens, and we just got to go from there. I mean, pray to God and have faith in whatever your totem is or whatever, that, we don't die in a nuclear fireball between now and then, Blake.
Yeah, I wish that was something that you could actually laugh about, oh boy, it's the old times. We joke about these things and it's not super serious, but yeah, it does seem like we could be facing some pretty big problems right now. And, we were just like we were talking about beforehand, we're already seeing elections. So what was her name again? It was Jocelyn Benson. She's a part of Michigan's election board. I believe she's the Secretary of State, and she's already saying that it could take up to an additional day to count the votes in Michigan. So we're already seeing that expanding of the timetable. The shenanigans that, I don't know about you guys, but in my entire life growing up, even back in Bush versus Gore, we got that thing done in a very timely fashion. And now all of a sudden it's standard procedure to delay these elections results coming in, to have middle of the night ballots getting counted in, so you're seeing the stage being set for some shenanigans. On top of that, we're seeing those international events getting bigger and bigger, and we'll talk a little bit about some of those tonight. And then some of the other domestic things going on right now is some very.
Well, hang on, before you do that, before we go too far away, we didn't think about this, or I didn't think about this until you just made that comment. And this is a technique that they've been developing for the last number of elections. Generally speaking, Republicans vote during election day. That's actually when everybody should vote. Mm-hmm. But the argument, just like they change a narrative and they change the language, is that, so we count your guys' votes, but then we've got all these other mail-in ballots and all these other things that, we don't get until later. So just like the last election, Trump's up by 20,000. And then someplace after midnight, when they shut everything down and they black it off and turn off the cameras, then 23,000 votes suddenly came in for Joe Biden. Not 21,000 for Joe Biden and 2,000 for Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. All of them for Joe Biden. So Blake, to your point, those shenanigans, that technique is already being in it's conditioning, right? It's psyops. They're getting people ready for that, Mm-hmm. We're not going to be able to certify the election for 4 days. Never in the history of America has that ever been the case. Why is it so difficult now?
Yeah.
No, it's because they want to cheat.
Yeah. I even saw.
I just so I don't lose my point. But what the point I was trying to make is they are conditioning us from a psychological warfare perspective. They're conditioning people to already expect this, and Trump was up, but then suddenly all these ballots came in. We needed more time to count things. Come on, boys and girls. That's more time to figure out how much more cheating we need to do is what it really boils down to. I mean,
They're setting the stage is what's happening. I mean, there's even a certain
prepping the battlefield, Blake. Prepping the battlefield.
Exactly, because that is what's happening. And there's even a certain voting machine company that just announced publicly to basically be careful, don't start rumors, or we're going to sue you into oblivion. Yep. So I mean, we're seeing these things taking place already again. It's very interesting, and we're a very short period of time away now. I don't know the exact amount of days, but we're only a little.
It's Monday. The election is technically 15 days from now.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 weeks and then a day, right? That's still, so somebody might say, well, it's 14 days. Yeah, depending how you want to look at it. But yeah, I mean, the 5th is its own day, and that's Tuesday, and that's so yeah, whatever.
Now, one thing I will say, because I'm frankly very tired of the election cycle, as many people are, as we all do get towards the end. But for a little bit of levity tonight, I loved seeing Donald Trump, even if you'll say it's a mock doing of it or whatever, I don't care. He was giving people a 7th chicken nugget and filling the fry bag and overfilling the thing at McDonald's. So that was pretty great. I got to say, I loved that.
Hey, did you see him and his personal dietary desires? I saw one little clip. I didn't see a lot of that, but I saw a clip where the fry guy who was really running the fry line had to tell him to not put as much salt. Like Donald Trump, he obviously must love the salt on McDonald's fries, which, by the way, they're not the best fries, but they make up for it by having a lot of salt on it. But he wanted even more salt. He was like, the guy's like, no, that's good right there. And he's like, more? No, dude, no.
No, I didn't see that. But like, I would love to watch all the B-roll from that, because like what the clips I did see were just hilarious. And that's the thing that drives me nuts about it, is you hear all the people, for one, that just can't have a good time. That are like, oh, it was set up, it was shut down. Well, no kidding, Sherlock. Of course it was. The guy's had 2, maybe 3 assassination attempts in the last quarter of a year. You don't think they're going to control every variable of this when he's in a public place? Like, come on now.
Well, it's politics. I mean, all that's set up. I mean, there's not a politician that just goes anywhere without, planning it out. And I mean, like, imagine if you just showed up at Centerline Systems. I don't care if you're Donald Trump, or whoever you are. Like, no, dude, you can't just show up and interrupt my fucking day. I mean, like, yeah, that's awesome that you're here. Maybe I support you, whomever you are, candidate wise. No, all of that is orchestrated. And it is. But that's what Waltz is trying to say, is like, oh, he made a mockery. I'm like, no, he didn't. You can just see how much everybody enjoyed that and how awesome that was. And, look at how many people were outside, and, and then the corollary, just one thing, and I'll just finish, because the other, kind of the same humor. Trump does that and goes in there, and he's just a dude. And he's like, he's an old dude who loves McDonald's. He gave that was like the food he had in his presidency. If you showed up for, to hang out with him, there was McDonald's and shit. So he obviously is a junk food, whatever type of dude. God bless him. I can't, my cholesterol, is already horrible, and I eat clean, but so whatever, he's got a superpower. But to that point, as you said, the corollary, that how does that look? He's in there being a total knucklehead, in the real term, like he's being a real human being who loves junk food, and he's trying to put more salt on the fries. And then flip over to Kamala Harris, and she's talking about abortion. And I don't give a shit what side of that's a separate conversation. But somebody says, Jesus is Lord, and she says, you're at the wrong rally. And then Gretchen Whitmer doing actually, I think there's been 2 or 3 events that have made a mockery of Christianity. And so really, for me, now I'm kind of actually didn't know I was going to get serious. It just shows you what the fight we're in. It's good versus evil, and evil isn't hiding shit right now. Like, oh, you're a Christian? Well, we've got to destroy that. Oh, you've got a family? We've got to destroy that. Oh, you believe in community or a country? No, we got to destroy that. You can't be an individual.
Well, and I think that's the very first little baby steps, the iteration. And I know it feels like way more than baby steps to us, because we've been living in this now for going on a half a decade. This mind's actually more than that, really. But what this is that first generation of what the powers that be really hope is the totalitarian government of the future. The controlling of every aspect of every single thing. I was watching, or listening, I should say, to podcast.
To add to it, I don't know. Did you see Gene's comment about the joke about bugs? I just popped it up. I'll pop it up.
Yeah,
but I think that's going to add to where you're about to go. I just wanted to see if you saw that.
No, I didn't. But it's absolutely accurate, And I was listening to a clip from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters earlier today, which, for those that don't know, Sargon of Akkad, Carl Benjamin is his real name, started the podcast Lotus Eaters. It's his, I guess you could say, alt, but it's not really alt, but it's his media company. And they were talking about how the dystopia is already here. It's not as cool as we always saw depicted in the Hollywood movies. It's not that Blade Runner-esque, awesome, like neon everywhere, mist in the ground. We got cool flying cars. No, it's just that shitty sci-fi dystopia with, like, well, actually, it would be more akin to Idiocracy really. As much as I hate to say it, that really is kind of the world we're finding ourselves in right now.
Well, but before you go too much further, visually, Blade Runner and the whatever part 2, however you want to look at it, visually are very spectacular movies. But no one actually addresses what it is like for all those people living down on that street level. I mean, like, dude, that's a hellscape. You know, I think they kind of captured it a little bit in the part 2. You know, just because like no one gets to go off planet, you know, and it's just like just you know, you got to live in your little controlled city and all that kind of crap. But so it visually it looks cool from that dystopian perspective, as you just said. But no, but could you imagine what it's like living in that hellscape? You know.
Well, and that's, you know,
and I think we're about to find out, brother.
Oh, well, and I think that's the at least the goal. And I'm not, and I shouldn't say the goal, because there's obviously many goals and many different factions that are out there, all vying for control and playing for different long-term outcomes. But I think that there is a certain subsect of the quote unquote elite that are hoping for a totalitarian world where they can actually elicit that much control over the individual, where you can actually, you know, find out for thought crimes what someone's doing, putting them in prison, even if they just had a thought against the state, or you know, whether that's like the Minority Report style from Philip K. Dick, where it's actually like in your head, or whether that's just, you know, the 1984 style where it's just something that you said. But that level of control is, I mean, not to be too crude, but it's the wet dream of the totalitarian. It's the hope that they've always wanted to elicit that much control.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm afraid that that's at least why I say we're in the baby steps of that coming to pass right now. We're seeing on the horizon, boy, that could be really, really, really bad, because it's pretty bad now, but we can see what's coming, and it's terrible. And we don't have a whole heck of a lot of time to stop it. And quite frankly, I'm at a loss really of how to do that, short of the conversations and trying to spread a new ethos and that sort of thing. But it's getting hairy, I suppose.
Eugene also made a comment. He thinks a little bit more Judge Dredd than Blade Runner.
Yeah, Mega City 1's for real, dude. Like, I could see.
And depending on what movie, I never really cared for either of the movies. I thought they missed like the graphic novels and the comics. But I think if you go into the graphic novels and comics, then I think Gene is spot on. But I think it was still picked up to some extent in the second Judge Dredd. No offense to Sylvester Stallone. Actually,
he took the helmet off.
Well, you know, and just like the Mandalorian did, it's like, we all know who he is as an actor.
Yep.
You know, I mean, I don't know. Maybe that was supposed to like indicate some stuff about, you know, he's a different type of Mandalorian. Why are we suddenly talking about Star Wars shit? I mean, how did I just get
brought up Star Wars?
Dude, hey, for everybody watching, this is going to be a shit show. I'm so tired and worn down. Blake is too. Now, on a personal note, Blake, his wife, were super kind, and you know, Blake and I do business on the Centerline system side, and we had some gear. We're finishing up some stuff, and I hadn't seen these guys in a while, so they took the longer leg, and we met kind of in between. But I did my first, road drive. That was like 3 hours of driving on Saturday, and I've been wiped out since like Friday of last week, and today, you know, I'm like, oh gosh, I had work to do yesterday. I'm like, I just can't do it. I got to take the day off. And I know Sunday I took the weekend day off. But today, you know, and I still got work to do after this. And so if we sound like we're idiots, it's probably because, well, A, we are idiots, but B, I think we're just both really tired, and just everybody look. And again, we're not saying woe is me. Everybody's out there working their asses off. If you're a human being like us, you got so much shit going on in your life, and you don't have time for half of this kind of crap. You know, that's kind of there. Maybe that's where I'm subconsciously, that's where I was going. We don't have time for this nonsense, Blake. Life is already tough, and you know, life is cold, nasty, brutish, and short. And then try to run your own business in this world. And like, it's already difficult as it is. Why do we need to keep adding layers of just, you know, making it worse? And I think, to your point, if you were part of the, you know, the League of Shadows, you know, that cabal, that's, you know, that no one even knows about. Well, you know that this is what put more pressures on the middle class, dude. Force people to conform, force them to have to, You don't even have time to watch these two idiots talk, like, even if you wanted to, you've got too much shit going on in your life. And I think that's actually part of the design. And then where I'm going with that, and I'll turn it over to Blake. When we were talking and doing, we barely did any pregame for this tonight. We're still in that zone where because we both kind of started with like, oh, well, what's really going on? And the moment we started thinking, it's like, again, you can't even keep up with how much stuff is going on in the last week since last week's live stream.
Yeah. Yeah, it really has just kind of been constant. Now it was when I called you earlier today, I was like, well, we could talk about Trump selling chicken nuggets. There's not much else. And then you start talking like, oh, wait. No, there's a lot more to talk about, and things that just can kind of slip by that might have massive ramifications, So speaking domestically is about one of those things that has massive ramifications potentially is the Daniel Penny case. He's up there. They're picking the jurors right now.
Hey, slow down. Give everybody a little bit of a background. Gene's not.
Yeah.
So give everybody a little background.
What was it, about a year ago, Mark, already? Or was it a little over that, huh?
It feels like it was over that, but it may have been within a year.
I know time's such a blur.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, Daniel Penny was on a New York City subway system, and there was an erratic homeless individual who was accosting individuals in the train. You can actually go and watch the video for yourself. Yep. And anyway, wait for a second. Okay. So anyway, Daniel Penny actually subdued the individual. I can't remember the guy's name.
Daniel Penny and two other individuals did that.
That's right. It was two other individuals, and actually, I think he was cheered on by the car, if I remember correctly. Regardless of it, he choked out this individual, can't remember his name, and the guy died. And now Daniel Penny is actually on trial for whether it was I believe second degree murder, I think is what they're looking for, or no, I believe manslaughter. I think it's second.
Yeah, I think it's a higher level of manslaughter, just below murder. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So, this is one of those cases because we're talking about a difference. I mean, honestly, if we want to really boil down to the identity politics in the United States right now, it comes down to the difference in skin tone between these two individuals. Daniel Penny was white. The individual that died was black.
The other two individuals who assisted him weren't white. I mean, one of them at least was black, and I think the other guy may have been Hispanic. But none of that. It was two men defending other innocent people from a violent, deranged individual on a train, period.
But because of the identity politics and the reductionist society that we live in, they will leverage the color of the skin of the individuals to actually try to make this a problem. And, this case has a potential, depending on which way it goes, to be a powder keg in the country. Very reminiscent of George Floyd, I would personally say. So.
Continue. I was just shaking my head because I think no matter how it's, I think no matter what the outcome is, somebody's gonna find a way to turn that into a powder.
And I think that's really a symptom of the cancer in our nation right now, because like we've talked about with the election, and whether Kamala gets in, Trump gets in, it's irrelevant. There's going to be political violence. Whether Penny gets off or he gets found guilty, it's irrelevant because there's probably going to be political violence. I mean, we're in this world now where we've gone to the extremes. There's not this cool-headed conversation, driven kind of mentality of, hey, let's try to find a common ground. It's well, that son of a buck over there did X, Y, Z to us, so we need to now make him pay. We're in very tense situation right now. No.
But just to that point, and then if you want, Blake, then let's pivot over to what AVV just said. But to Blake's point, and we kind of talked about this earlier today. And look, boys and girls, we're not trying to be a newscast. I mean, go do your own research, and that's why you don't see us like pop up a bunch of articles and stuff. Look, I unfortunately, because of my background, I still read like 7 different news outlets. That's what I do in the morning at about 6:30 in the morning with a cup of coffee before I start Centerline. I'm looking at news, international and domestic. But so, and in last week, and I'll probably have this slightly wrong, but I know I've got it in between the goalposts anyway. An individual grandfather, 60, late 60s, early 70s, protesting outside of a Planned Parenthood, just pretty much had the book thrown at him. 3-year prison sentence, and it's not a super max, but he didn't get sent to a, here's a guy with this background and who he is. He didn't get sent to a minimum security. He's being sent to a no shit federal. What's that line from Office Space? A federal.
Oh, you mean a federal pound me in the ass?
Yeah. Yeah, whatever.
I haven't watched Office Space in a long time, man. So apparently this is going to be some pop culture references tonight as well.
Yeah. Well, that's what we're doing. So, but and that's a great movie. I might have to watch it.
It is a great movie.
Humor. But and that's where they sent them. So
what would you do with $1 million, Mark? I don't know. I'd probably do 2 girls at the same time
in a jet truck or something like that, or whatever he said. No, I think his thing is like, I'd probably just do. And then he goes, "Why would you what? Look at me. You think?" I can't remember.
So a guy with $1 million could probably set that up.
Yeah. He's like, I couldn't set it up, but if I had $1 million, I could probably set that up.
That movie is ridiculous, dude. But and actually, to the point of the world we find ourselves in, because that Office Space movie, which it's funny because actually same director of Idiocracy, that was basically a prequel to the world of Idiocracy. This is that dumbing down of the individual, crushing the individualist spirit, putting them in a cubicle, making everybody fit through the same thing, try to do nothing but fill your TPS reports, make sure they're on the desk of your boss by Friday. Oh, by the way, did we mention you have 7 different bosses, and those 7 different bosses are going to give you 7 different things to do that all happen to be the same thing, and you're going to be told 7 different times? Like, this is Idiocracy.
And don't forget, you don't have enough bling. Well, I've got 15 pieces. Isn't that what? Well, that's, the minimum, but but
Tony over there, he's got 47. Well, do you want the minimum? Should it be 47? Oh,
yeah. And that's where we are right now. Hey, before we segue over to some of the other more, kind of in your face and violent, kinetic, the potential to kill us all, because AVV's brought up a couple good points, and I think that's worth kind of bringing up. But just on that kind of, where we are. I mean, I'm trying to figure out how to say this, and I'm not trying to be political and be, politically correct about my statement. It's one of those things that you either know it in your heart and you just know it in your every fiber of your being. But if you just look at the media, here's maybe what I'm trying to say. 60 Minutes just came out. They've been completely busted for their false editing and the whole "sir" and all that kind of stuff. They're a sham organization. They're not a news outlet. They're not even close. And that whole thing with Kamala, or is it Kamala or Kamala? Whatever. And that's not me trying to be misogynist and sexist. It's like, okay, I've heard her name said a whole bunch of different times by people on the left even. So I don't even know, but I'm just going to say Kamala. But her interview was so horrible and they edited it, and Trump called them out on it. And now they're making these statements like, oh, that's bullshit. And, why don't you come back on and, we'll prove you wrong. And like, hang on, you just said things. You didn't disprove what I just said. Like, I'm saying, show the whole interview, release the transcripts. The clips are out there where you guys edit, and they're like, no, we didn't edit it. We just did. There was no, you did. You did edit it. I mean, that's what editing means. So back to our kind of point here, like in media, and, if you look at, Hollywood and media in America, it is so clearly one-sided. Again, if you can't see that, well, you're probably not watching this podcast if you don't believe that, or if you can't see it. But, it just makes me sad for those people. Like, oh, what are you talking about? It's CNN. I'm like, are you serious? Oh, what are you talking about? It's CBS. I'm like, are you serious? Like, I don't know what rock you're living under when you're still listening to old mainstream. What I don't even know what's the term for it now, Blake. That's not even
legacy media.
Legacy media.
The bigger ones I've heard. Yeah.
Legacy media. Yeah. Well, but legacy media it's not the fifth column anymore. Or the fifth estate, however you want to say that. It's actually just a wing of who said it?
It's state media. At this point, it really is just state media in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And just like in state media and any good propaganda organization, you're going to have both controlled opposition and opposition. Yeah, you know, so we would be your quote unquote opposition, the people that aren't being paid, and we're just talking honestly and openly. And then you have your controlled opposition, which would be like Fox News. You know, that they say the things that we want you to hear that are on the other side. Yeah. And then you have your CBSs and your CNN and NBCs. And inside of those networks, occasionally you'll have good pieces that are put out to keep up the credibility of it. But in essence, all of them are being handed down by a handful of different corporations, what their marching orders are for the day and what the general script is going to be. And this is done all the way up on the national and global level, all the way down to the individual affiliates that are in your local city. Like, it's just how that works anymore, which is why it really is just state media.
And I love how if somebody says, oh, you guys, tinfoil hat, there have been so many mashups of all of these different independent local stations across our 50 states. All like, and it's scary. It is dystopian when you hear that mashup and they're all saying the same thing with a slightly different cadence or a different accent, but it's the same freaking message. So that's what I was trying to remember. Clint was on my live stream over on Centerline last week. Clint, former SF guy, Nemesis Camo. And gosh dang it, now I'm just lost my train of thought. Gosh dang it. He said something so funny though about what we're just talking about media. And well, okay, that shit happens. I'm sorry. My boys and girls, not only am I tired, I'm starting to laugh because, you know, Blake and I, where we're going, but again, if you think the media is really telling you the truth, I mean, like, if you don't see how it's all being controlled, you know, and he didn't say this, but his go back and watch, you know, Centerline last week with Clint. That was a great. He's always a great guest, and we were kind of talking about this stuff. Oh, maybe Blake, that's where I was maybe trying to go with it, to kind of close this out and then go to switch directions based on some comments. But if he was talking about Joseph Goebbels, right? You know, he made a reference and a comparison to our media, who is constantly saying that if you believe in family or Christianity or God and country, whatever, you're a Nazi. That's their key words now. Well, I mean, like, his comment was like, man, Goebbels would have been like embarrassed, like, on how good we are, like, in what our media looks like, our state media. You're like, fuck, I don't even know if George Orwell would have even, like, hang on a second, that's even more than I thought was possible. But that's where we are. They're not independent in the least bit anymore.
No, they're not. It's just like you said at the beginning, it's just another branch of the government. You know,
hang on, did you see it?
Yeah, I did, dude. Hypnotoad.
See, we're making way too many pop culture references because Hypnotoad is badass. Gene
trying to hit that algorithm.
But Gene's showing he knows some of that stuff, you know, like Hypnotoad, man.
Well, but actually, to the point of a comment that was made, and this is exactly how the media is used. AVV brought it up. They're planning to blame the guy because he was a trained Marine, you know, and this is the narrative that's going to be.
You want to go down that road now? Then
I do, because it kind of ties into the media, because this is exactly how the media is going to spin the story. It's going to propagate the concept in the minds of the general masses who can be programmed by these forms of media. Entertainment, education is what they'd like you to think, but it's just all entertainment programming, you know. So what they'll do is then they'll have the general masses going, oh, he was a trained individual, he should have known better, just like Derek Chauvin should have known that the training he got would have killed the guy, even though that was the training he was given, you know. And this is how that mind virus can be spread among the general populace, where if you can actually take someone and pluck them out of the group think and go, okay, let's talk about the situation. Here are the facts of the case. Here's what happened. What are your thoughts? And don't give them any more than that. And most people, if you can actually break them out of their programming, are going to go A plus B equals C. All right, I get it. No problem. But when they're going along with that programming, you can whip everyone into a frenzy. And next thing you know, you have the summer of love. And it's a fiery but mostly peaceful protest. So
yeah, fiery but mostly peaceful. You know, but I kind of want to come back to that. I got a little sidetracked on Hypnotoad because I'd forgotten about that. I'm gonna probably have to find a way to get Hypnotoad, you know, on the shelf behind me somewhere, or actually maybe I'll get a Hypnotoad Christmas tree ornament for this year. That would be pretty badass. But
I like it.
Yeah, that'd be a good one. But back to AVV's comments and to what you were saying, when it comes to Penny or Chauvin. Chauvin did exactly what he was trained to do. That is how that ever because by convicting him, you actually convicted the whole Minneapolis police department, the city of Minneapolis, because all of those standards that's approved by a civilian board. There's a process for this. He wasn't. You could argue all you want about is that excessive or not, but that's not the point I'm trying to make. My point is that was per their standards. That was per their SOP, and that's what he did with Penny. Oh, he's a Marine and he should have known better. That's the same type of people. The people who say that are the same ones. Like, why didn't you shoot him in the arm or shoot him in the leg? Like, you're obviously an idiot if that's how you think this works, type of thing.
Well, and I think the other thing is whether it's an actual goal or it's an unintended consequence of these sorts of things unfolding this way, but it is very strongly discouraging good individuals from interacting and trying to stop bad individuals during the committing of a crime or something along those lines, to whatever that may well be. It's discouraging people to be a good civic citizen. So it has huge ramifications across the board. I hate to say it.
Here's one of the ramifications. That police officer who was accosted, that he was doing a health and welfare check. Okay, you can put, that's a separate argument. Like, should police be doing this? Whatever. That's a separate thing. But no matter what, he's at the door. He's knocking at the door, and the moment it opens up, that former basketball player, female, is attacking him with a knife. To the point Blake is making, or the point I want to make based on Blake's comments, is that was hands down in your training, your decision-making process. That was lethal force. He should have been gunned out and put in 2, 3, 4, as many to the chest as necessary to stop that threat. Instead, he's taking cuts. Any one of those you get hit in the jugular, you're done, dude. And he's taking cuts and he's backpedaling, and if you've seen it, he's trying to tell her to stop. Yeah. No, dude, that whole de-escalation is over. She's trying to kill you at this point. So I'm just bringing that up, Blake, to your comment. And Chauvin didn't do that, and Penny didn't do that either, right? That's a completely different situation. But that resulting chaos in our community, in our society, is we now have police officers who, for whatever reason, are hesitant to actually uphold the law. And look, for the record, boys and girls, I'm not a big fan of law enforcement in America right now. I mean, you want to make a comment about brown shirts and the Third Reich? There's going to be I'm going to probably agree with you on a bunch of this stuff. I mean, like, the videos are there for everybody to see. However, the legal rules of engagement and the rule of use of force is pretty clear cut on this one. But to Blake's point in the comments that have come in, why did that guy hesitate so much? Why was that guy somehow so reluctant to go to gun? Maybe somebody would argue, well, because he thought he wouldn't have to kill her. If he would have hesitated one more second or didn't backpedal the way he did, give him props for good footwork, he would have been dead. She would have killed him, period.
Yeah, and I think that another one of the unintended or maybe intended consequences of these sorts of situations is you're seeing a purge of the honorable men and women in a lot of the different places of authority, like police departments, sheriff's departments, for that sake, even EMTs, firefighters, things like that, because you're seeing these individuals that, when they went, all right, I'm willing to lay my life down to help somebody else. I'm willing to run into that burning building. I'm willing to charge into that school shooting, whatever the situation may well be. Well, now they're going, holy crap, if I do my job right, I will be punished for it. If I go along with the system and do what they want me to do, I'll be rewarded with it, but I have to sell my soul and destroy my morals. And so the good men sit back and go, how do I look at the man in the mirror? Yeah. When I sacrifice my morals like this, and they leave, and what happens then? Well, now we have a void where the honorable men used to be, and it's filled with these jackboots with these people that'll go, yeah, I don't give a crap, man. I'm in it for the power trip anywhere. I'm in it for the government bucks or whatever it is. And I'm not saying it's everywhere, because honestly, in my local area, several of the counties around me, I know a lot of the sheriffs. I know a lot of these guys. They're good people. But there are a lot of places, especially in the populous centers, where, man, it's dirty again. Like, it's like 70s in New York, but like on crack kind of dirty. Like, it's gotten bad, dude.
And I just think, again, from my humble opinion, and I think you nailed it, purge the good people out of those systems, replace them with the sociopaths, the sycophants, the youthful idiots, and you will create entities that, look, there's so many people upset. Oh, Elon Musk. Well, look, I think one of the things if Trump does win, and I'll save my political perspective of what Trump needs to do, or whoever needs to do it. I mean, I would say the same thing even if Kamala wins. I mean, here's what I think needs to happen to save this country. But Elon Musk coming on board and, cleaning house just like he did at Twitter. Twitter didn't go under. I mean, like, look at all the waste that he got rid of. We all know, and if you're watching this from overseas, I'm sure it's the same in your government. You guys feel the same way. Our governments have just become bloated. Like, I've been saying this for a long time. I'll shut up and go to Blake because he's heard me say it for the longest time. Our government has become kind of like the apparatchik of the old Soviet Union. If you were in government, you were at this level. You were the people who were being taken care of. All the serfs and peasants, they're eating, turnips. You had special grocery stores. You could have a dacha, a house, out in the countryside. You owned a car. No one else had that. That was reserved for bureaucrats. That's who we've become, and that's the same on law enforcement. I hate to say it,
Well, it does seem to be that's the world we're finding ourselves in, where you have the party members and you have the plebs, or you have the initiates and the profane, or however you want to say it. And AVV just brought up a good point here. We have it on screen right now. I mean, you can push the general populace to do both horrible things for themselves and abhorrent things to others if you put enough pressure on. And I really think that the years between 2019 and 2021 were probably one of the largest scale social experiments that ever took place to see how far the envelope can get pushed. And I think these nebulous powers that we speak of, these NGOs, these individuals operating high within the government, but realistically operating as breakaway civilizations, are doing is they're going, okay, how far can we push the envelope? And with the coof and the jab, they went further than we thought.
Yeah.
So let's keep this going. Let's see how far we can. Because typically throughout history, a lot of times you'd see ebbs and flows where you'd see the powers that be that go, okay, we're going to push. And then everyone gets really pissy and they go, okay, we're going to draw back, or violent uprising happens. All right. And it kind of went back and forth like the tide. Every once in a while it would go one way and then the other way, one way and the other way. Well, this time we're not through that high tide mark yet. And they just kind of kept pushing. They didn't really draw back a whole lot after the jab time. They did for about a year. And then it was like, all right, cool. Now on season 2, it's global warfare, So we're dealing with this ever increasing snowball that's getting bigger and bigger and dealing with more and more problems because it's picking up more and more detritus as it rolls down the mountain. Well, eventually it's going to get at the bottom of that mountain and smash into that village. The question is when. Is that the election cycle that we're going through right now? Maybe. Is that maybe after the campaigning season is done, winter kind of cools things off a little bit, and next spring it pops off because all of the theaters of war can open up simultaneously? Maybe none of this happens. I don't know, but it does seem like we're at a time period in history where things are coalescing around some great event that's going to happen. And we can see this cyclic rate throughout history where it ebbs and flows, but it does happen almost on the clock. And it seems like we might be there right now.
I'd say 180 days, no matter who wins. Like, that's what we've got, so, Blake and I, we started this whole thing off trying to be more self-reliant and teaching and showing, taking our backgrounds and our personal knowledge and trying to share that. And then, things just kind of became what they were. And they were like, okay, look, it's almost too late for that. Let's just kind of focus on, on international and domestic issues here for the next month. And that's where we are at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But, Blake, to your point, my response, and, the only reason I brought that up is, so 180 days, without getting into it, we've already talked about that, but like, no matter who wins, you've got 180 days, because if evil wins, what do you think the world's going to look like in 180 days? To Blake's point, what do you think it's going to look like, in the Northern Hemisphere once we get through this winter? What is spring of next year of 2025 going to look like? What are the events that are going to take place? Like, if evil wins, you boys and girls, I'm just asking you, what do you think they're going to do? What do you think the first, second, and third operations or events that they have to focus on? What do you think those are? I've got my opinion. Don't necessarily need to bore everybody with it right now, but I mean, well, I'll just throw it out there. I mean, this has to go away. You have to control the narrative. So if evil wins, and I've no problem. I don't know how many people will watch this video, but maybe $1 per person or something like that. Whatever. I'll make a bet though. 180 days from now, you will not have a free internet. Elon Musk, Twitter, any free speech platform will be attacked. You'll have people knocking at your door just because you watched a video just like the one. And there's nothing even crazy about what we're talking about. Go ahead, Blake.
Well, I was going to say, if that were to unfold, I think your top end internet, like what we're dealing with right now, it would be going down. There would not be that ease of communication. I think that if that situation were to unfold, there's potential, though, that the internet would still be available in a certain capacity through like things like Starlink, unless we start seeing a space war really popping off and they start knocking out satellites and taking things down.
Unless they take control of all of Elon Musk's assets. I mean, like, so Starlink will be there because why wouldn't you do that? No, it's a great system, but I only want my message to go through Starlink. I don't want anyone else's. Now, Joe Rogan's, people like him, that's going to be hard to shut down, but they've already tried it and they've come really close. I mean, Parler got shut down. Dan Bongino got kicked off of YouTube. What'll happen to Rumble? And no offense to people on Rumble, but like Rumble's already going in a weird, slight direction right now. And I get it. They've got to make money. It's a business, but they're doing more commercials than YouTube does. I mean, it's like, so there's already weird shenanigan and things afoot. What is that going to look like 180 days from now if evil wins? And back to the point, we had so many people in official positions, law enforcement, from the low level all the way up to government officials, mayors, governors, elected officials, unelected bureaucrats who went all in with stealing your personal freedoms because there was a crisis. What was it? Franklin? Was it Franklin or Jefferson? The moment you sacrifice your freedom for security, I think that was Franklin.
You deserve not. Yeah, it was those that, and I'm going to butcher the quote too, but it was something along the lines of those that sacrifice their freedom for security deserve neither.
Yeah. Redbeard could answer that right now, but
yeah, he would be our constitutional scholar in house. So
yeah,
but
now just to kind of set this up, I want to bring it back to you, but I want to, as we kind of start wrapping this up, I want to come back over to that kinetic military, what's going on in the world. AVV had just said, but to that point, he was kind of agreeing that he thinks that we may be at the end of the weak men cycle. What are your thoughts about that? And then find a way to segue that into what's going on in the world, international geopolitical conflict, military stuff.
That's pretty easy to do. I mean, if we are at the end of the weak men cycle, and if we look historically at, using the old adage of, what is it? It's strong times make good times.
Good times.
Weak men make hard times make strong men make good times. It's a cyclic rate. It's the wheel of time, if you will.
Yeah.
It's just the way humanity works. And if we look historically at the end of the weak men cycle, what takes place, it's the fall of nations. It's utter anarchy. It's the kind of things that one could use the adage that it's biblical in description of what happens and unfolds. And if we are truly finding ourselves at the end of one of these times, the last time I would say that probably took place would have been the French Revolution, would have been the last real, like, well, this is biblical levels of just chaos and debauchery in the streets in Europe and France specifically. And if we are there, I think the signs are kind of indicating to it. We have the conflict, as it's called, in Ukraine, Russia. Which now we're hearing rumors, and actually the Ukrainian government and the South Korean government have outright said that there are multiple different soldiers from North Korea operating inside of the battle zone. So now we see another major power. Say what you will about North Korea. They have, it's like the third or fourth or fifth largest standing military in the world. They're a very, very large force. And when they do throw their weight into a battlefield, it is something to at least sit up and kind of pay attention to as far as global troop counts are considered. On top of that, we have the Middle East just turning into really a huge confluence of chaos right now. You're seeing the Israelis pulling off one of the most sophisticated operations that's ever taken place to try to decapitate the head off of these terrorist forces in the region. And in doing so, the ire of Iran is looking to it. We see the United States trying to stop the attack that Israel was going to make against Iran, right, wrong, or indifferent, potentially stalling the opening of the second campaign theater inside of the next global war. We see Taiwan being completely surrounded by both Chinese and Russian forces in a live fire exercise that were taking place, arguably the third theater that will most likely open up if this is to be a global conflict. And if that were to go hot, in my opinion, you'd see domestic violence opening up all across the Western world. You'd see multiple civil wars in multiple different countries. I mean, we're looking at one of those times where the world stands on such a precarious footing, with even beyond just the kinetic aspect of things, the financial and economic aspects of things are absolutely tedious right now, or tenuous right now, rather. So the world stands on
tedious though too. It's tedious.
Tedious as well. Yes. But the world stands on shaky footing right now, and it is at that point where, and I know it's kind of a tired example, but that Franz Ferdinand moment. It takes but one shot from an Ivor Johnson frickin' break open 22 that you'd throw in the river when you're done with to send the world into anarchy. I mean, it is primed, at least historically speaking, to have some incredible events unfold.
Hey, I'm just going to share a screen real quickly. I just pulled it up. Now, what I'm sharing here, let me try to bring this full screen so everybody can see it. So Statista is a great website, and I don't have an account, so I can just give you, only like the Gen Pop, but you can see it right here. As of January of this year, China has the largest armed force in the world of active duty military personnel with 2 million. India, the United States, North Korea, and Russia rounded out the top 5. But if you give me a second, I'll go back to a different, and I can't see the actual source on this. It's just in my Brave browser. They have a slightly different stat. They say China, India. You guys can see me scrolling it. China, India, United States, Russia, Vietnam. But they give North Korea a notable mention. They say with an estimated 1.2 million, which would make them obviously in the top 5. But to their credit, they're like, but the numbers are difficult to verify, right? So. Right. Yeah. So anyway, but whether, so depending on how you look at it, North Korea, unfortunately,
it's a player.
Yeah. It's got a lot of fucking bodies and, and steel, blood and steel that they can throw against the problem. Yeah.
I was going to say, is it a major threat? Well, let's look at history. I mean,
define major threat. You just talked about a guy with the 22. A guy with the 22 trying to kill you is a major threat.
Exactly.
Dude, period. Yeah. It's still a major threat.
And let's say they are, North Korea is using that 60s, 70s, 80s, and maybe 90s in some capacity level technology. They've got the bodies to throw at it and the heart to do it. And historically, granted, it was the Chinese in great part of this as well, but they handed our ass in the north of North Korea back in the Korean War at Chosin Reservoir. Now, that was largely Chinese forces as well, but this is the mentality of the Eastern fighter. And, to the point, since we're talking about North Korea, they just, I think it was like 4 or 5 days ago, might have been a little longer than that, but it was within the last week. They actually destroyed the inter-Korean highway system and railroad system between the North and the South. So, without speculating too much as to why, it is another major move on a global stage that leads one to believe that open conflict may be gaining serious consideration among world governments across the globe.
And on that note, so everybody's watching, you can see the live chat, and if you watch it on demand afterwards, you can still watch the live chat. I'll just pop it up there real quickly. But to Blake's point, and kind of getting into it, we, and maybe, correctly, we focus and we have a very ethnocentric perspective. We're Americans, we look at it. But my takeaway from some AVV just said there in relation to your comments, Blake, but we're not an innocent party. Like, no. We're out there all over the world doing all kinds of shit, getting involved in, and there's many of us who would argue, why are we doing this? Why are we here? Why do we care about that? And, and if you take it from just like domestically here in the States, and every state is a little bit different, but if you look at your rules for the use of lethal force in the state of Minnesota, one of the, you've got 4 conditions that have to be met. And one of those has to be, you must be an innocent party. If I go to the bar and start picking a fight with Blake, and then I pull a knife on him and he shoots me with a gun, well, I'm going to rephrase it. If Blake picks a fight with me and then I pull a knife and then he shoots me with a gun, he's not an innocent party. He picked the fight. He's going to find some legal consequence because, yeah, he used the gun to defend himself, but he started the fight. So to AVV, to your point, and then Blake bringing it over to you, if you just look at what America has been doing in our forever wars, and, so again, for me, this whole thing, this isn't just a condemnation of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. It's pretty much every president we've had since Clinton. I mean, realistically, we've been involving ourselves in areas that it should, as an American, just make you kind of scratch your head and be like, why are we doing this? How is that securing the homeland? How is that securing our interests? Well, because my interests don't really matter. This is my point, Blake, and I'll bring it to you. It's the interest of the global elements that are running our country. That's what matters. Oh, we've got to get involved in Ukraine. Why? Well, because we've invested billions of dollars there in covert, biolabs or whatever, or we can launder so much money through there. Like, okay, but how does that resonate and boil down to me, Joe Civilian? Why am I concerned about American?
And that's just it. They'll sit there, and when you say that, and they'll go, well, it doesn't. We don't care about you. You are nothing but the slash to throw to the side, And that's the thing, is there's money to be made, power to be brokered, humans to control, sell, trade, like, yeah. And it's, what was it Hillary Clinton said about Libya? We came, we saw, we conquered. And now to this day, since she said that.
No. We
died.
He died. We came,
we
saw, he died. And then she cackled like Kamala Harris.
Yeah. And now what do we see in Libya? Say what you will about Gaddafi, but there weren't open air slave markets. Like, we are nothing but the playthings of these people. And it's just, I don't know, man. It's a screwed up world, and it's a big club, and none of us are part of it. And I wouldn't want to be part of it anyway, because we're talking about evil incarnate.
And I just got to throw this out there because you brought it up. And then, when pressed on the issue, because Americans died, and I actually met some of those Americans, and I'll save that for a different podcast if you haven't already picked up a little bit of my background and some of the things we've talked about, especially when DB and I are talking. David, who's been on the podcast before, but then to just say, what does it matter now? Like, oh, I fucked up and created the situation and I got Americans killed, fathers, husbands, sons, however you want to phrase it, Americans, like American individuals were thrown into a situation in which it was inevitable that it was going to fail. And then instead of stepping up to the plate and saying, yeah, we really fucked up hooch on that one. It's like, well, what does it matter now? Like, you're absolutely right. Why don't you go hang out with the families and tell that to them? Tell that to them. Tell that to them. Go back in time and be in his final moments as he's been sucking in smoke and he's being tortured and raped. Yeah, whatever. What does it matter? Hillary, you're absolutely right. What does it matter at all?
Well, and to the point specifically of Gaddafi, he said that I am the only thing holding back the floodgates. And then he died. And what happened? Europe and the United States just started getting overtaken by illegal immigration from the Middle East, and specifically Europe and
North Africa
levels, and North Africa. Yep. And what was it that Gaddafi was doing? What was the thing that he was doing? Oh yeah, that's right. Gold-backed currency for his people with no usury. Funny the thing that he was actually trying to do that was arguably one of the few threatening things to the power that be is a decentralized banking system with gold-backed currency that doesn't charge usurious rates. That, what does that allow people to do? Actually have access to money that allows them to build, generate, and regrow a nation? We can't allow those things. I'm not saying Gaddafi was a great guy. He was kind of a scumbag, but those were the magic bullets he knew to put in the cylinder of the gun to fire at these people.
I'm trying to pull up the name of everybody besides Stevens. I'm not going to turn this into that. And maybe we'll save that for later this year when the anniversary comes back up. But, and maybe I'll have DB on for that. And maybe it's time for me to break a little bit of silence about that shit too. And anyway. Yeah.
Well, but without saying too much, Mark, right now, that's one of the things that is going to happen, because you have so many of these disenfranchised individuals that were willing to lay their life down for what they believed was a good cause that are now sitting back and they're going, was it worth it? What do we even do? And I probably shouldn't even be talking about the point because I wasn't there myself, but I can see these individuals because I know these individuals that are struggling with these concepts right now. And when you have that demographic in a country that now feels to be abandoned by their nation, and on top of that, you have a demographic of young men who feel abandoned by civilization and the fact that they can't move forward and procreate and have a family and try to live that American dream that so many others died for. When you have a world that says, well, honey, I'm sorry, this is progress. And if you got to suffer so we can advance, well, then so be it. What the hell do you expect to happen? They
expect you to shut the fuck up and die. Eat your crickets, live in your little small house, and you're either going to get on board with the program or, as we talked about, or we're going to use the United States military. We're going to authorize use deadly force to be used against you if you protest our unconstitutional actions. Blake, I don't know if you just threw that softball up there for me to take a swing at, but boys and girls, they're not hiding this anymore. This is exactly the program, the direction we're moving. That's why I'm saying you got 180 days. And even if one side wins, even if good prevails, we're not anywhere near out of this fight. I mean, that's my biggest thing. It's like, oh, Trump. Yeah. I'm like, dude, do you realize we've got at least 6 years of hard fucking life in front of us. No one wants to even talk about our financial situation as a country, our national debt, the inflation. We have so much of an uphill battle in front of us. That's if good wins. We still have to tighten our belts and strap in and fight the good fight. So our children and our children's children can grow into something or be born into an even better world. But if we don't go that direction, and if we're not willing to do that heavy lifting, well, you got a different type of heavy lifting in front of you in the next 180 days. And that's figuring out how you're going to survive when the Roman Empire collapses. That's my comment right there.
Well, and I think that's getting,
because these people want you to just to shut up or die.
Yeah. And I think that, kind of put a bow on all of this is that's really where we're at. It's the, do we want the struggle to be in our generation, or do we want it to be in the next generation? Do we want to carry this burden, try to fix these problems? Because quite frankly, I would rather be the one to deal with it than, well, my son who's downstairs, and I can't wait to get off this podcast and go hang out with for a little bit, because that's what the world's about, right? It's about rearing that next generation. But,
and by the way, and even though I don't have a kid, like I was, Blake and I, we just linked up on Saturday. I've seen the kid now twice, and come on, man, you've got to be a cyborg or dead inside to not just have the joy of being around a child, and to realize, yeah, okay, that's why I raised my right hand. That's why I'm willing to do these things, is so these guys, this little awesome creature, can grow up to be a solid citizen of your country, a good man, a good woman, however you want to define that, and, to stop pulling on your beard or farting and burping.
Yeah, but that's what makes it worth it right now, man. And that's the thing, is if there is that great struggle, that end of the week men time, and it's going to happen, I'd way rather it happen now while I'm able to take care of it and not try to push that off on my children or my children's children. It does seem like there is a storm coming. It's already here in a lot of ways. And, like we've talked about every single time we've had one of these podcasts, and we will continue to talk about, is if you see that storm coming, get prepared for it. Batten down the hatches, tie down the tarps, put on your mucklucks and your oil skins, and get ready for that storm to hit you. Yeah. Don't just sit around twiddling your thumb and warming your fingers while you're waiting for that storm to come here. We all know it's coming. Yeah. So start making preparations now.
You better have that 10 pounds of bear grease. You better have that 50 pounds of flour, 20, or 50 pounds of salt and 20 pounds of flour, whatever. I mean, like, seriously. I mean, look, take it for what it's worth, whomever you are watching, whenever you are watching this. These are the thoughts. These aren't just thoughts. This is exactly the stuff that Blake and I talk about. These are the preps I'm already doing right now. I've been doing, for a long time. Now it's like, okay, I've got to figure out how to do something I've never done before, but I have the means. So, okay, not really a media thing, but I already kind of said I spend my mornings, waking up with a cup of coffee and reading the news. Well, this morning I spent about 15 minutes with a cup of coffee, looking at all kinds of YouTube videos on how to start making a lot more of my own food that I normally don't do. Like, again, breads and snacks and all that. I'm not effing around when I say this. I mean, yeah, I mean, it's real. It's real, and it's right here. And it's either at your doorstep or it's in your entryway right now. If you don't know that, God bless you, and I wish you the best,
Yeah, I was going to say it's got eyes to see and ears to hear, man. It's plain as day. Oh,
hey, we said this was going to be a short one, and this was one of the easiest hours we've ever had. I mean, like, there's just, and as we said at the beginning, we were like, oh, I don't know what we're going to talk about. And then once we started saying that, it's like, oh, there's too much to talk about. But let's maybe end it on what AVV is bringing up here. I'm going to leave it over to you. And AVV, as a guy who spent time in Iraq as well, with the agency, combat op, but not in, in uniform, not in the United States military. Again, and maybe I'm going to start telling more stories going forward. The things I saw, again, and if you were there, what we're talking about. But to AVV's point, because that was actually for me, probably AVV. That was probably my eye-opening moment too. I'd been in the military for a long time. Was going down the SF road. I'd become an officer. Just real quick story, and this makes sense to what AVV said and what I just kind of said. Not the whole details, but was in 20th Special Forces on the training team, was there for a year, getting ready to go to selection. I'd become an officer. I got bumped because some active duty officers, and I don't know anybody out there who's actually in 18 series, and I should maybe ask Clint this, but me and my training partner, another officer from the National Guard, we got bumped by some active duty officers. So and we just looked at it like, hey, that's another 30 days to more PT, more foot marching and all that kind of stuff. Then 3 days after I should have been in Bragg, no phone, no contact. That's when the agency contacted me and said, hey, do you want the job? And I was like, what the F was this? That was my kind of moment. And then I thought about, I want a family and like, am I really going to be able to do that in the military? And I thought the agency would be better. And then fast forward, I'm on my umpteenth rotation to a shithole. I'm on a hillside, 10,000, above sea level. And I'm just like, this is exactly what I thought I was going to be doing in the special forces, but I'm doing it in the agency. And, I haven't even been in America long enough to get a second date. So, but back to your point, AVV, what you just said resonates with me because that was my eye-opening moment. That was when I just kind of like, what the fuck are we doing here? And why are we here? And what is this all about? And how do we justify this? And AVV, so I don't want to speak for you, but yeah, sobering. I loved how you used that word because that was my sobering moment. That's when I think, in the military, we use a term like, over the hump. When you're going through hard training courses or classes, there's this phase when you suddenly finally start getting it. And it's still super tough, but you don't see it as super tough anymore. It's just, you got your rhythm. You go over the hump, you get past the hump. Blake, do you want to maybe address that whole military side of it? What AVV is kind of getting at, the corruption and and I guess I just kind of got personal there because there's a part of me that just wonders how many of our boys and girls, our brothers and sisters haven't gotten over that hump yet. And they don't see the world or they see the government. The government doesn't give a fuck about you. Hillary Clinton wouldn't have given a fuck if I was on a snuff film, getting my head cut off. She would have just said, what difference does that make now? Just like she did with Stevens and everybody else, in Benghazi. So that's my kind of comment. And that's not because it's Hillary Clinton. It's the same thing. Our political parties don't really represent us. And the people who come out and who are, and this is the last of my diatribe, in my personal opinion, those individuals who, for whatever reason, are braver than any of the rest of us and are willing to enter politics for the real reasons and subject themselves to that shit, like what we see going on right now. That's a different type of bravery. I don't have that type of bravery, but I'm just highlighting that because that's not the vast majority of our politicians. That's not the vast majority of our bureaucrats. That's not the vast majority of people who hold positions of power within, unelected officials within these organizations. So AVV's, you can tell AVV's comment kind of struck a chord with me, and I'll shut up on that and turn it over to you, Blake.
Well, that's kind of the thing, right? Politicians, the controlling elite, it's a den of vipers. And they don't care about any of us, whether you are one that wore the uniform or whether you are a domestic civilian that just holds the levers. They don't give a shit about us. They view us as a number, as a commodity, as something to be spent and replenished, not something with a soul, not something with a family, with a life, with stories. And I think that unfortunately is most illustrated when we look at our veteran community and those that were, let's be honest, used up by that very government and then just cast aside. And the thing is now, and I think in the last several years we've seen it on highlight, is that the individuals that have been put through that have now seen very wholeheartedly how the government treats them, especially with things like how we pulled out of Afghanistan and what was it for sort of situations. And what I don't know if concern's the right word for this. What my observation is that I would think eventually you're going to have that group of individuals that just go, no more. I don't give a shit anymore, and what comes of that, I don't know. But my guess is it leads towards a collapse, like we were talking about, where there will be this disenfranchised group that says, basically we have to have a change. And it seems like all of these things are culminating at the same time. It's the election cycle. It's these international conflicts and wars. It's the geopolitics, the economy, this massive group of individuals that have been casted by the wayside and basically told to just go die in the street as their rights are robbed and stripped away from them, and their benefits that they were promised were never get delivered. And we're reaching this nexus, this perfect storm where, like I talked about earlier, that Franz Ferdinand moment. It takes but a shot from a pistol to set all of this off. There's so much going on right now that I don't see how it's a sustainable system.
Well, I personally don't think it's been sustainable for almost 20 years. I mean, not saying I'm Nostradamus and crystal ball and my dots on the wall theory, but this has been going on since, the Bush era. I mean, it's been unsustainable for a long time. And unfortunately, we've just had to suffer through so much pain as a nation, as families, as individuals. And it's, I think there is a light at the end of the tunnel, going back to what you and AVV, the whole weak men, hard times, all that. Yeah, I think people are waking up, but, that goes back all the way to our founding fathers and the Tree of Liberty comments and all that. And maybe that's who we are as a society. Maybe we're just that society that we need to have Mike Tyson, just doing some serious Mike Tyson shit to our face before we realize, holy shit, we're in a fight and I better start getting into it and being serious. Well, hopefully this fight is one that we can sustain the amount of pain that we're going to suffer, and we can sustain it long enough to realize we're in a fight and we can wake up and start fighting back and countering countering evil, these global efforts that are conspiring against us. But the deal. If you've ever been in a real fight, if you are caught flat on your feet and you don't have enough time to, get into a defensive stance and start going on the offense, it could be too late. The guy's tapping you out, or he's knocked your teeth in, or there's a bayonet in your chest. I mean, that's the reality of just of combat, so I don't know. Hey, I do want to just come back over to another thing AVV said. And, I don't want to just plug Centerline over here, but on Thursday's live stream on Centerline Thursday this week. So that's the 27th. Yeah, I think that's the 27th of this week. I'll have two guys on with me, and we're going to talk about the VA healthcare because I just got to put it up there because AVV is absolutely right. Another aspect that we don't talk about. And it's not just veterans, boys and girls. I mean, look, Helene, that's already out of the news. There are people in North Carolina and portions of Tennessee, North Carolina, the East, who still haven't received any sufficient government aid. Look, matter of fact, and by me even saying that, I've done a disservice to people to Lahaina in Hawaii and East Palestine. There are people who've been devastated by natural or man-made disasters, and our government is still yet to do a damn thing for those people.
But Mark, we cannot forget the fact that Ukraine and Israel need more weapons. Otherwise, how will we protect our allies? Is that what they are? What are these guys?
Well, whatever, maybe if they join NATO or something, I don't know,
Please, dude. And that's the thing, is we have our own freaking people starving, dying to the elements and suffering while we're spending billions to conflicts we have no business being in.
And Anthony Blinken was so proud to announce at the end of last week that I can't even keep up with how much money we've given to Ukraine, or how much money Ukraine has built this for, or our politicians have used it as, a money laundering thing. But he was so proud to announce last week that another $420 million is going over to Ukraine. And people in North Carolina can't even get that $780 because you got to have internet to get the $780.
But if you did get your $780, you better pay it back, or we're taking your house.
Yeah, you better put that on your taxes, or our new 80,000 IRS agents are going to be come knocking on your door.
Yeah. So okay, before this goes totally off the rails and I get so freaking pissed I get that vein stuck out of my head, we should probably wrap this up.
Well, okay. Well, wrap it up. We don't do the comments, but we've had some really good comments here tonight, and I really like that. I just want to throw it up there. And so Mike just talked about, the personal toll and the PTSD. Yeah. Hey, I'm serious. join me over on Centerline on Thursday. We're going to be talking a bunch about that. And then AVV, if you haven't seen it, but Mike's giving you a big heads up and a big, thank you for speaking out. And and then AVV saying thanks. And AVV, Mike, and everybody else who leaves comments during these live streams. So again, over here on Millstone, we do it a little differently. We're trying to just stay a little bit focused, but I think, tonight we've gone a little bit off rails, but we knew it was going to happen. And I think next week it'll be even more so. Because again, you're either ready or you're not ready. Okay. My SIRT pistol is way over there. I was going to get my SIRT pistol out and you can go through and do some drills and work on some stuff. There's things that you can still do. I was doing research this morning, trying to figure out, ways to start making a lot of my own bread and, and those type of products. Yeah. There's stuff that you can still do that don't require a lot of effort, a lot of training, and a lot of, like if you've been cooking your whole life, then, look at a recipe for how to make, this type of bread or this type of biscuit and then execute. That's not difficult. So there are things that we can still be doing to improve our lot. And as Blake says, you should be doing that every day. You should be finding some new little aspect where you can self-improve and make your world and the world around you, for you, your family, your loved ones, your community a little bit better. But unless you're Elon Musk, you don't have the money to go and hire a bunch of people and take the next 2 weeks off and then do 2 weeks of rigorous, seriously 18-hour days like you are at the Q course, doing land navigation, physical fitness, weapons training, that's just not going to happen. So what are you going to do? You can keep your hands inside the ride, Blake. That's about the best we can hope for right now. Keep your hands inside the ride and enjoy it, my good man.
Keep your hands inside the ride, say your prayers, and keep your powder dry.
Yeah, I guess you could pull out a 20-sided die and see what the outcome's going to be,
Man,
but hey, for what it's worth, you do you. I say this all the time. Yeah. If you want to vote, who you vote for is up to you. You don't have to disclose that to anybody. That's your personal decision.
Yep.
But man, I don't, honestly, Blake, I just caught myself, and I don't want to be blackpilled, but more and more evidence is piling up that this is all a bunch of bullshit, and it's two different wings of the same bird.
Agreed.
Agreed.
But
again, go ahead.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, let's say to that point, though, so it's two wings of the same bird. It is all piling up. So if we find ourselves truly at the end of the weak man cycle, and that means the hard times are coming, then we can find solace and hold faith in the fact that after the hard times are good times.
Yep. And that's for our children and our children's children. Yep. Well, Blake, so here, just a little bit of honesty, and why not? Because the world we might all die in a nuclear fireball in the next couple of weeks. So, but Blake, and I've said this to Blake many times, another friend of ours, I was having a conversation with a couple months ago, and he asked me to try to describe how I, from a spiritual perspective, saw the future. And the immediate thing that came to my mind was the word hardship. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean I'm talking about a future of hardships, but maybe it's hardship for me. But that goes into what Blake just said right there. I do think it's going to get better. But unfortunately, for some of us, and maybe for many of us, there's going to be some heavy lifting that has to get done, period. Yep. And this election, it isn't just going to suddenly be a switch and it's all better on November 6th. There's a lot of hard work in front of us, boys and girls. A lot of hard work.
But may that hard work be on our shoulders so it does not have to fall on others.
Roger that. Hey, final things on my side, and then I'm going to shut up and bring it over to you. I can already tell it's just, I was so tired, and now I've had my second glass of mead, and now I'm, when you're tired, just that alcohol hits you. Like I feel like I just want to cuddle up on the couch and just wrap up in a blanket. I'm just at that point right now. But hey, but on that note, I still got some work to do. But just real quickly, Mike had asked a question, Centerline Systems. So Mike, Centerline, Millstone, we always do the live streams at 1700 Central Time. So whether that's daylight savings, that's another conversation right there, or standard time. But yeah, so Blake knows for this, but yeah. So this Thursday is still unfortunately daylight savings time, even though we're almost in November. So 1700 central daylight time. This Thursday is when we're doing that right there. And thanks for wearing the belt every day. Hey, Mike, tell us if I'm wrong. It helps keep your pants up, doesn't it? And then AVV, though, just chiming in. Thanks for taking the time. And thank you, AVV, for taking the time to watch us knuckleheads tonight and share your thoughts. Again, you kind of hit me in the solar plexus once or twice and made me kind of remember some stuff. So, yeah, you're not alone, brother. You're not alone. Blake.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, guys, as always, we really appreciate you listening. And I would say we've kind of talked about this a lot recently, and why not go out kind of the same way? Where will the bomb find you? Is it going to find you breaking bread and playing darts with your friends, or is it going to find you hiding in a corner? You know, I do truly believe that if we are going to be the generations that see these hard times, well, then for that, I am grateful, because then that means their future generations, our offspring, maybe can live in a better world than we find ourselves in. Maybe we can be that candle in the darkness that can help somebody else out to make them pull through what's happening now. So don't ever despair. Don't ever stop. Always try to make a little bit better than you were the day before. Take a step forward a little bit harder. And keep your chin up. Because, yes, we find ourselves in hard times, but we also find ourselves in great times. Times that entire volumes of history books will be written about. Now, I find a little bit of excitement in that, even if it is a bit macabre. No.
Hey, and I don't want to extend it, but that was a great point. I don't want people to think that we're just being black-pilled and we're being negative. Like, no, we're being honest. Like, I've always hated it both in the military and the agency when people try to sugarcoat and bullshit things. Like, dude, if you tell me I'm going to have to box somebody for 3 rounds tomorrow, and then you don't tell me who it is, and then I show up and it's Mike Tyson, like, okay, well, or whomever it is, like, I'm going to prepare myself for that conflict differently based on the information, so I can process that and I can come up with a better battle plan, or a better technique, or I can focus my energies on different, resources or pieces of equipment. That's all it is. We're not trying to be naysayers and negative and black pill. It's just the harsh reality. You have to understand the terrain upon which you are deployed so you can figure out how to use that terrain to your advantage, or work with that terrain, or understand how that terrain limits your combat capabilities so you can better execute your mission, your plan, your operation. That's all I think what we're trying to accomplish here these last couple of weeks and into next week. We're not trying to be doomsayers or any of that kind of stuff. That's not the point.
No, if I was trying to be a doomsayer, why the hell did I go and procreate? And that's
you'd have nothing to lose.
Yeah, right. Oh, there you go. That was dark. So, but that's the thing. This is what we're fighting for. This is what really matters, and we're stepping up to the time of our lives right now, man. So now, on that note, my little man is starting to fuss, and I got to go get him. So
that's right. He's there's a beard he needs to latch onto.
Priority numero uno in all things. So, all
right. Well, hey, take us out then. You kind of took us out, but take us out on a slightly different note, and then let's just wrap it up.
Right. Well, I would say to all of you where you are, I hope these words find you well. God bless you. I love you. I hope the best for you, and I hope for a bright future. So try to keep building that bright future so that we can all see it together.
Amen. And then, well, let's just hopefully we'll see you guys next Monday back over here, 1700 Central Daylight Time. Thanks for being here on the live stream. Thanks for watching the video on demand. And if you got questions, leave comments. Tell us what you think. And then if nothing else, we'll just see you next week, and hopefully we will actually see you next week. So, all right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Be good. See ya.